The glow of my study lamp cast long shadows across the room, turning my sanctuary into a stage for my unraveling. In my hand, the pages of the detective's report felt like lead, each word a bullet, each sentence a wound. Alise, my wife, the center of my universe, caught in a sordid affair with James Dalton. I had harbored suspicions, the kind that gnaw at the edges of your mind, whispering doubts you wish to silence. But here it was, in unrelenting black and white, a detailed account of her betrayal. I poured another glass of scotch, the amber liquid my only solace in this moment of torment. The ice clinked against the glass, a sound too mundane for the storm raging inside me. I gulped it down, feeling the burn in my throat, a pathetic attempt to sear away the pain. The room, once filled with the laughter and warmth we shared, now felt cold, a tomb of our dead marriage. I glanced at the photographs lining the shelves, mocking me with happier times. It was then, in a moment of blinding rage, that I hurled my glass into the fireplace. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the room, a symphony of my rage. There was a knock at the door, sharp and insistent. I stormed over, ready to unleash my fury on whoever dared disturb my private hell. Yanking the door open, I was met not by the expected intruder, but by the stern faces of two police officers, their hands resting on their holstered guns. "Mr. Holloway, we received a noise complaint." "Sounded like a gunshot," one of the officers said, his voice betraying a hint of caution. "A gunshot?" I laughed, the sound bitter. "No, officers, just the sound of my life falling apart. But come in, join the spectacle." The officers exchanged a wary glance before stepping inside, their eyes scanning the room, taking in the shattered glass and the open bottle of scotch. "Care to explain, Mr. Holloway?" The second officer asked, his tone softer, perhaps sensing the depth of my despair. "My wife?" I started, the words tasting like poison. "She's been unfaithful, and tonight I received confirmation of her betrayal. That's all. No gunshots here, just a broken heart." The officers softened, their postures relaxing as the tension dissipated. "I'm sorry to hear that, Mr. Holloway," the first officer said, sincerity in his voice. "We'll need to take a look around, just to clear the call. Standard procedure." "Of course," I replied, stepping aside to let them pass. "Do what you must." As they conducted their brief search, finding nothing amiss, I couldn't help but feel a perverse sense of relief. For a moment, my personal tragedy had been laid bare, and these strangers offered a semblance of understanding, a brief respite from the isolation that had consumed me. With a nod, they prepared to leave, the lead officer pausing at the door. "Take care of yourself, Mr. Holloway. And maybe try to find someone to talk to, all right." I offered a hollow smile, the gesture feeling foreign on my face. "I'll consider it." "Thank you, officers." As the door closed behind them, the silence returned, a suffocating blanket. I was alone again, with nothing but the ruins of my marriage for company. The scotch no longer held any appeal. I sank into my chair, the weight of my shattered illusions pressing down on me. The night stretched out before me, endless and unforgiving. The officers' departure left a void, the brief intrusion of their concern a stark contrast to the solitude that now enveloped me once more. The silence of the house mocked me, a cruel reminder of Alise's absence. She was out there somewhere, likely in the arms of James Dalton, while I was imprisoned by the memories of a love that had been a lie. I paced the room, each step a testament to the restlessness that consumed me. The detective's report lay discarded on the desk, a Pandora's box that had unleashed a tempest upon my world. I couldn't bear to look at it again, yet I couldn't bring myself to look away. The details were etched into my mind, a grotesque mural of betrayal. In a futile attempt to escape my thoughts, I turned on the television. The drone of late-night talk shows a temporary distraction. But the laughter, the light-hearted banter, it all felt like a personal affront. In a fit of anger, I turned it off, the room plunging back into silence. It was then that the phone rang, a shrill intrusion that startled me. My heart raced as I considered the possibilities. Could it be Alise, calling with some feeble excuse, some attempt to mend the unbridgeable chasm between us? Or perhaps James Dalton, taunting me with his conquest? With a trembling hand, I picked up the receiver. Hello. My voice was a hoarse whisper, belying the turmoil within. Michael? It's Alan Brooks. The voice on the other end was familiar, yet strained, carrying an undercurrent of tension. Alan, I replied, a sense of foreboding settling over me. Brooks was an acquaintance, a fellow lawyer, but our paths rarely crossed outside of professional circles. For him to call at this hour. I'm sorry to call so late, but I need to talk to you. It's about James Dalton. Alan's voice was tight, each word measured. What about him? I asked, my interest piqued despite the dread that knotted my stomach. I can't discuss it over the phone. Can I come over? There was a desperation in his request, a plea for understanding. All right, I conceded, curiosity and a shared connection to Dalton overriding my desire for solitude. Come over. It wasn't long before I heard the knock at the door. Opening it, I found Alan Brooks standing on my doorstep, a shadow of his usual composed self. His eyes were haunted, his usual meticulous appearance undone by the hour and the weight of whatever news he carried. Michael, thank you for seeing me, Alan said as he stepped inside, his gaze avoiding mine. What's going on, Alan? What about James Dalton? I pressed, needing answers. He's dead, Michael. Found murdered in his apartment tonight. Alan's voice broke, the finality of his words hanging heavy in the air. The news struck me like a physical blow, a mix of shock and a dark, vindictive satisfaction coursing through me. James Dalton, the man who had stolen my wife, now a victim of a violent end. It was a poetic justice that I couldn't help but relish, even as I recognized the ugliness of such thoughts. Dead? I echoed, my mind racing. Do they have any leads? Any idea who did it? Alan shook his head, a gesture of defeat. Not yet. But Michael. The dawn crept in reluctantly, a feeble light that did little to dispel the darkness that had settled over my soul. The night had been long, a relentless parade of tormented thoughts and unanswered questions. Alise's involvement with James Dalton, now dead, and her presence at his apartment on the night of the murder. It was a scenario ripe for speculation and suspicion. I had tried to reach her, my calls going unanswered, her silence a damning indictment. The morning brought no reprieve, no call from her explaining her absence or the situation. The house felt more like a mausoleum than ever, a tomb for the life we had built together, now irrevocably shattered. It was mid-morning when the knock came, a sound that seemed to echo through the hollow spaces of the house. I approached the door with a sense of dread, half expecting to see police officers waiting to drag me into this sordid affair. Instead, it was Alise, her appearance disheveled, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. Michael, she began, her voice trembling, I need to explain. I stepped aside, allowing her entry, my anger and hurt warring with the residual affection that her presence stirred within me. Explain? I echoed, my tone bitter. How do you explain being at his apartment? Being involved with him? Alise sank onto the couch, a picture of misery. It's not what you think. I went to confront James to end things. I realized how much I was risking, how much we could lose. And I'm supposed to believe that? I scoffed, the pain of her betrayal a sharp lance through any remnants of trust. Michael, please, she pleaded, her hands clasped as if in prayer. I found him like that, I swear. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. Her words, her desperation, it should have moved me, sparked some semblance of sympathy. Instead, it fueled my anger, my sense of betrayal. You were scared. What about me, Alise? What about what I felt, discovering your affair? I'm sorry, Michael. I truly am, she sobbed, her body racked with tears. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. but I didn't kill him. You have to believe me." The room was thick with tension, a tangible entity that seemed to suffocate any possibility of understanding or forgiveness. The woman before me, once the center of my world, was now a stranger, her actions casting her in a light I could scarcely comprehend. "Alise, if you're innocent, you need to go to the police. Tell them what happened," I said, my voice cold, detached. "I can't," she whispered, a look of fear crossing her face. "They'll think I did it. They'll believe I had a motive. And don't you?" The question hung between us, a stark reminder of the chasm that her actions had created. "I need your help, Michael," she implored, reaching out to me, a gesture I recoiled from as if burned. "Please, you know me. You know I'm not capable of this." Did I know her? The woman who had shared my life, my bed, who had promised to forsake all others. The revelation of her affair with James Dalton had torn down the facade, revealing a side of her I had never known. "Alise, I don't know what to believe anymore," I admitted, the words heavy with sorrow. "But if you're innocent, then the truth will come out. It's the only way." Her plea for help, her insistence on her innocence, it left me in turmoil. A part of me wanted to believe her, to cling to the vestiges of the love we had shared. Yet, the evidence of her betrayal, her duplicity, was a barrier I couldn't breach. As she left, a broken figure retreating into the uncertainty that awaited her, I was left to grapple with the remnants of my shattered life. The accusations and revelations of the night had laid bare the illusions I had cherished, leaving me to navigate a path through the wreckage, alone. The days that followed were a blur of introspection and turmoil. The house, once a sanctuary, now felt like a prison, each room echoing with memories of Alise and the life we had shared. Her plea for help, her insistence on her innocence, haunted me, a constant reminder of the chasm that lay between us. It was during one of my aimless wanderings through the house that I found it, a small, unassuming envelope tucked away in the back of a drawer. My name was written on it in Alise's familiar handwriting, the script a painful reminder of a time when such discoveries brought joy, not sorrow. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope, extracting the single sheet of paper within. The words were a confession, a mirror of betrayal that reflected the depth of her deception. Michael, asterisk. If you're reading this, then I fear the worst has come to pass. I've made choices, terrible choices, that have led us to this point. My involvement with James was a mistake, a moment of weakness that I deeply regret. But it was more than just an affair. James was involved in things, dangerous things, that I found myself drawn into. I thought I could handle it, that I could keep it separate from our life together. I was wrong, asterisk. Please understand, my actions were never meant to hurt you. I was trying to protect you, to shield you from the darkness that had crept into my life. But I see now that in trying to protect you, I've caused you unimaginable pain. For that, I am truly sorry, if anything should happen to me, know that my love for you was real, despite the lies and betrayal. You were always the light in my life, even when I lost my way, forgive me, Alise. The letter fell from my hands, a silent testament to the complexity of the human heart. Her words, a mixture of confession and justification, did little to assuage the sense of betrayal that gnawed at me. Yet they also revealed a vulnerability, a glimpse of the woman I had loved, ensnared by circumstances beyond her control. I sat there for what felt like hours, the letter a catalyst for a storm of emotions. Anger, sorrow, regret. They merged into a maelstrom that threatened to consume me. It was then that the doorbell rang, a jarring intrusion into my reverie. I opened the door to find Detective Larson, his expression somber. "Michael, we need to talk." I nodded, leading him into the living room, the letter now a heavy weight in my pocket. "We've made some progress in the investigation," Larson began, his gaze steady. "It seems James Dalton was involved in some shady dealings, financial fraud among other things. We have reason to believe that Alise was, unwillingly, drawn into his schemes. The detective's words echoed Elise's own confession, a bitter vindication of her claims. "What does this mean for Alise?" I asked, the hope that had begun to flicker within me tempered by caution. "It complicates things," Larson admitted, "but it also corroborates her story. She was a victim in this, Michael, as much as anyone." A victim. The word resonated within me, a shift in perspective that I was still grappling to understand. Alise, the woman I had condemned, was herself ensnared by circumstances she had neither anticipated nor desired. "Is there a chance she'll be cleared?" The question was a whisper, a fragile hope that dared to assert itself. "It's possible," Larson replied, "but we'll need your help. Anything you can tell us about her relationship with Dalton, anything at all, could be crucial." I thought of the letter, Elise's confession and plea for understanding. It was evidence, a piece of the puzzle that could either condemn or absolve her. "I'll do what I can," I said finally, the decision a testament to the complex tapestry of love and betrayal that had defined our relationship. For Alise. Detective Larson's nod was one of acknowledgement, a silent recognition of the journey I was about to undertake. A journey towards understanding, forgiveness, and perhaps redemption. The path would not be easy, but as I looked down at the letter in my hand, I knew it was one I had to take. For Alise, for myself, and for the love that had once been the cornerstone of our lives. In the aftermath of Detective Larson's visit, a fragile truce settled over my heart. The letter, Elise's unwitting confession, had laid bare the torment and turmoil that had led her down this path of destruction. Yet, it also illuminated the depth of her despair, her desperate attempts to shield me from the darkness that had ultimately consumed her. The days passed in a haze, each one a step towards an uncertain future. I found myself adrift, caught between the remnants of the past and the possibility of a new beginning. It was during this time of introspection that Alise reached out, her voice a tremulous thread across the chasm that divided us. "Michael, can we meet?" Her request was simple, yet loaded with the weight of unspoken words and unresolved emotions. I agreed, the decision a concession to the tangled web of love and betrayal that still bound us. We chose a neutral ground, a quiet cafe that held no memories or ghosts from our shared past. Seeing her again was a jolt, a reminder of all that had been lost. She was thinner, the lines of stress and sleepless nights etched into her face. Yet, there was a determination in her eyes, a resolve that spoke of her journey through the nightmare that had ensnared us both. "Michael, I'm leaving," she began, her voice steady despite the tremor that betrayed her nervousness. "Leaving." The word echoed between us, a finality that I had not anticipated. "Yes, I need to start over, to build something new from the ruins of my mistakes. I can't do that here, not with everything that's happened." I nodded, the logic of her decision a bitter pill to swallow. "Where will you go?" "Somewhere far from here. A place where the past doesn't define me, where I can be free from the shadows that have haunted me." The silence that followed was heavy with the words we both left unsaid. The love that had once bound us was now a ghost, a memory that flickered in the space between us. "Michael, I'm so sorry," she whispered, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "For everything. I never meant to hurt you." "I know," I replied, the acknowledgement a salve to the wounds that had festered between us. "I wish things could have been different." "So do I," she said, a sigh escaping her lips. "But we can't change the past. All we can do is move forward, however we can." The finality of her words was a closure, a closing chapter on the saga that had appended our lives. As we parted ways, a sense of melancholy settled over me, a mourning for what had been and what could never be again. In the days that followed, the house felt emptier than ever, a shell devoid of the life and love that had once filled its rooms. I packed away the remnants of our life together, each item a testament to the love that had once flourished. The departure was silent, an unspoken goodbye to the life we had shared. As I watched her drive away, a chapter closed, not with the fanfare of dramatic goodbyes, but with the quiet resignation of two souls seeking redemption in the aftermath of betrayal. In the end, Elise's departure was not just a physical leaving, but a departure from the past, from the mistakes and hardships that had defined us. It was a journey towards forgiveness, towards healing, and ultimately, towards a new beginning. The world seemed to stand still in the wake of Elise's departure. The house, once a hive of shared dreams and whispered secrets, now echoed with the solemnity of a mausoleum. I wandered through its rooms, a specter haunting the remnants of a life dismantled by deceit and sorrow. Days melded into nights, a seamless tapestry of solitude and introspection. It was in this crucible of reflection that I began to sift through the ashes of our burnt dreams, searching for the embers of understanding and forgiveness. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of fire and gold, I found myself sitting in the garden, the letter, the last piece of Alise that remained, clutched in my hands. The words, once a painful lance through my heart, now seemed to offer a semblance of peace, a bridge over the chasm of our shared tragedies. It was then that Tom, my oldest friend and confidant, found me. His approach was silent, respectful of the sanctity of my solitude. "Michael," he said, his voice a gentle intrusion, "how are you holding up?" I looked up, the remnants of tears a bitter testament to my inner turmoil. "I'm surviving, Tom. Some days are harder than others." He nodded, taking a seat beside me. "She reached out before she left, you know. Wanted to make sure you'd be okay." A bitter laugh escaped me. "And what did you tell her?" "That you're strong. That you find a way through this, just like you always do." Tom's faith in me was a balm, yet it couldn't quell the storm that raged within. "I don't feel strong, Tom. I feel lost, betrayed, but also, strangely, at peace. It's as if her leaving has finally allowed me to start processing everything that's happened." "It's a start, Michael. Healing isn't linear. It's okay to feel lost, to grieve not just for Alise, but for the future you thought you'd have." His words were a mirror, reflecting the tumult of emotions that I had struggled to articulate. "I keep thinking about the letter," I admitted. "About her reasons, her regrets. It doesn't excuse what she did, but I can't help but feel empathy for her. For the choices she felt forced to make." "That's because you're a good man, Michael. You can see beyond your own pain, try to understand hers. It's a rare thing." A silence fell between us, a comfortable lull that spoke of years of friendship and shared understanding. "What now?" Tom finally asked, breaking the quietude. "Now, I rebuild. Not just the life I thought I wanted, but the one I now know I need. A life where I'm not defined by betrayal, but by the strength to move beyond it." Tom clapped a hand on my shoulder, a gesture of solidarity. "You're not alone in this, Michael. Whatever you need, I'm here." "I know, Tom. Thank you." As he left, I turned my gaze back to the letter, the words a testament to the complexity of love and loss. In the ashes of our shared past, I had found not just the pain of betrayal, but the seeds of forgiveness and the promise of new beginnings. Elise's departure had marked the end of our story, but it had also heralded the start of my own journey. A journey not towards forgetting, but towards understanding. Not towards erasing the past, but towards embracing the lessons it had taught me. In the reflections of the ashes, I saw not just the end, but the possibility of a new dawn. A dawn where the pain of yesterday would give way to the hope of tomorrow, and the love that had once bound us would guide me towards a future of my own making. The dawn of realization came not as a sudden enlightenment, but as a gradual awakening. The house, once a symbol of shared dreams turned to nightmares, began its transformation back into a home. A sanctuary not from the world, but from the ghosts of the past that had lingered in its corners, whispering of lost love and betrayal. It was during this time of reconstruction, both of the physical and the soul, that I found myself more frequently in the company of Anna, a friend who had, until now, remained on the periphery of my life. She was a constant presence, offering not just her help in the tangible tasks of painting walls and moving furniture, but also in the more arduous task of mending a broken spirit. One afternoon, as we took a break from our labors, Sitting amidst the chaos of renovation, she turned to me with a look that spoke of deeper conversations yet to be had. Michael, do you ever think about forgiveness? Anna's question pierced a comfortable silence that had settled between us. I paused, considering. Every day, I admitted. Forgiving her, forgiving myself. It's a constant battle. She nodded, understanding coloring her features. Forgiveness isn't just a gift to the one who wronged you. It's a gift to yourself. It's the permission to move on, to not be chained by the actions of another. Her words resonated, echoing thoughts I had wrestled with in the solitude of my heart. I know. It's just hard. To let go of the anger, the betrayal. Of course it is, she agreed, her voice soft. But you're not alone. You're surrounded by people who care about you, who want to see you happy and whole again. I looked around at the half-painted walls, the tangible evidence of a life being pieced back together. I am, aren't I? Surrounded by people who care. Yes, you are. And we're not going anywhere, she said, her hand finding mine, a tangible connection in the midst of emotional turmoil. The conversation shifted then to lighter topics, but the weight of her words remained, a beacon guiding me through the fog of my own doubts and fears. In the weeks that followed, the house began to take shape, each room a testament to the possibility of new beginnings. With Anna's help, I found not just the strength to rebuild my surroundings, but to also start the more challenging task of rebuilding my trust in others, and the possibility of love untainted by betrayal. One evening, as we stood in the newly renovated living room, the setting sun casting long shadows through the windows, Anna turned to me, a question in her eyes. Michael, have you thought about what comes next? After the house is finished? I took a deep breath, the weight of her question settling in my chest. I have. I want to start living again, Anna. Really living. Not just existing in the shadow of what happened. And, she prompted, a gentle nudge towards the thoughts I had kept closely guarded. And I want to explore what's been growing between us, if you're willing. Her smile was all the answer I needed, a bright light in the twilight of the room. The journey from the ruins of my past to the promise of a new future was not an easy one. It was fraught with the debris of shattered dreams and the specters of betrayal. Yet, it was also paved with the support of friends, the promise of forgiveness, and the possibility of new love. In rebuilding from the ruins, I had discovered not just the strength to forgive, but the courage to love again, to open my heart to the promise of tomorrow. And in that courage, I found the true foundation upon which to build a new life, a life forged not in the shadow of the past, but in the light of hope and renewal.